Before the compass, before modern maps, before Europeans sailed these waters, Filipinos were already navigating the open ocean with a level of skill that stunned historians. Using only the stars, winds, currents, and memory, they crossed vast distances with accuracy modern sailors still admire. This is the true story of how ancient Filipinos mastered the sea. Centuries before colonizers reached the islands, the seas around the Philippines were already highways. Not empty waters, not uncharted territory, but familiar paths traveled by generations of Filipino voyagers. From the shores of Mindanao to the islands of Palawan, from the Visayan seas to Batanes, Filipino ancestors traveled with a confidence that amazed scholars. Their navigation skills were not improvisations, they were part of a deep scientific tradition passed down through memory, story, and community. This forgotten maritime intelligence is one of the strongest pieces of proof that Filipinos were never isolated. They were ocean people, explorers, innovators, and masters of a world that many thought was impossible to cross without modern tools. When archaeologists uncovered the Balangay boats in Butuan, they made one thing clear. Filipinos were building advanced wooden ships as early as the 10th century, and possibly even earlier. These boats were not rafts, not primitive canoes. They were plank-built vessels, expertly designed and joined together without nails. Each plank was stitched or pegged into place using carved dowels and fiber rope. The boats were flexible, allowing them to bend with the waves rather than break against them. And, this single innovation alone shows an understanding of engineering usually associated with civilizations like Polynesia and Indonesia. When reconstructed and tested by modern mariners, the Balangay could handle open-sea voyages. It was fast, stable, and capable of carrying cargo warriors, traders, and diplomats across thousands of kilometers. These boats were the pride of the Visayan and Mindanao maritime communities, and they reveal a truth that's often overlooked. Filipinos were navigating long distances before colonization, using homegrown technology that was really suited for the sea. Historians often assumed that only the Polynesians mastered star-based navigation, but research across Palawan, Sulu, Mindanao, and the Visayas revealed something remarkable. Filipino navigators used an entire star compass of their own. They memorized the rising and setting points of major stars, and they knew which constellations appeared during certain seasons. They read the night sky as if it were a map written in light. For Tausug sailors in Sulu, certain stars marked directions toward Borneo or the Celebes Sea. For Visayan voyagers, stars indicated the safest routes between islands, guiding them through shallow reefs and deep channels. The system was sophisticated and required perfect memory. Voyagers were trained from childhood, beginning with recitations of star names, followed by understanding wind patterns, and finally learning the deep art of reading the sea. This ability wasn't superstition. It was it was early astronomy. Ancient Filipinos also used a wind compass, recognizing seasonal wind changes that modern meteorologists call the Amihan and Habagat systems. Amihan, the northeast wind, brought cool air and calmer seas. Habagat, the southwest wind, brought heavy rains and strong waves. But Filipino navigators didn't just know the names, they knew the subtleties. They recognized slight changes in wind temperature that signaled shifting seasons. They understood that a wind blowing from a specific direction meant land was nearby. They interpreted how waves behaved when approaching shallow coral reefs. This knowledge allowed them to travel long distances without getting lost. A Spanish chronicler once wrote that Visayan sailors knew the sea better than we know our own roads. That was not an exaggeration. It was a simple fact. One of the most extraordinary skills of Filipino navigators was mental charting. They created maps in their minds, accurate, detailed, and passed down without being written. These maps included things like depth patterns, currents, reef locations, hidden sandbars, safe harbors, freshwater spots, trade wind paths, and even seasonal bird migrations. Navigators knew the exact distances between islands, how long each crossing took, and what signs to watch for along the way. For example, the Sama-Bajau, known as Sea People, recognized tiny shifts in water color that signaled underwater formations. The Yakan gauged the distance to land by studying cloud shapes. The Tausug knew that specific waves indicated shallow coral ahead. These methods were not guesswork, they were empirical observations developed through centuries of trial, error, and mastery. The southern Philippines was home to some of the greatest seafaring communities in Southeast Asia. Renowned for sailing between Sulu, Sabah, and Mindanao with ease, the Tausug Navigators really stood out. They memorized deep water routes and timed their voyages according to the shifts of the monsoon winds. Often referred to as the greatest natural navigators in the region, the Sama-Bajau lived largely on boats, moving across the seas the way others walked across land. Their ability to navigate by wave patterns is, honestly, still studied today. The Maranao and Maguindanao mariners traveled long distances during trade missions across the Sulu Sea, often escorting merchants, diplomats, and goods. When European sailors first arrived, they noted how these communities sailed confidently in conditions that, well, terrified even experienced colonizers. Navigation wasn't only for exploration, it powered trade. Filipino boats crossed the sea to the Malay Peninsula, northern Borneo, the Moluccas, Taiwan, South Vietnam, and southern China. Chinese records from the Ming Dynasty mention trade visits from Filipino kingdoms, including Butuan Sulu Tondo and Ma-I. This wasn't accidental drift, these were intentional voyages, guided by knowledge of currents and seasonal winds. You know, the Philippines was part of the Maritime Silk Road, which was this centuries-old network connecting Asia by sea. Filipino navigators were, honestly, essential to that system. So, modern researchers studying Filipino navigation have identified several core techniques. First up is Sidereal Navigation. That's using star positions to maintain direction across long distances. Wave pattern reading, huh? It's pretty fascinating. It's all about recognizing how waves rebound from islands, which actually helps detect land beyond the horizon. Next up is cloud navigation. This involves understanding that certain types of clouds tend to form above land, even when that land isn't directly visible. And finally, there are marine life indicators. By tracking birds, fish, and even dolphins, navigators can actually find their direction out at sea. Listening to water was, you know, a vital skill. Experienced navigators could actually detect reefs by sound. Waves would break differently over shallow areas, giving them important clues about what lay beneath the surface. These skills, when you put them all together, form a complete navigation science. This was all developed independently of European systems, which is honestly pretty remarkable. Spanish chroniclers, believe it or not, left surprising praise in their writings, acknowledging the impressive maritime intelligence of Filipino navigators. One account noted that Visayan sailors could cross the sea faster than our own ships. Another described how Filipino boats moved like birds upon the water. A Jesuit priest even wrote that Moros from Sulu were the best pilots in these seas. These were not poetic compliments. They were direct observations from people who expected to meet isolated islanders, not trained navigators. Today, Filipino navigators are teaching their methods again. Back in 2019, the Balangay Voyage retraced ancient trade routes, and they did it using only pre-colonial techniques. No compass, no GPS, just stars, waves, and memory to guide them. They actually managed to travel all the way from the Philippines to Southeast Asia, showing once again that ancient navigation knowledge was real, precise, and honestly, pretty powerful. These days, ethnographers across Mindanao and Palawan are documenting the teachings of modern Sama-Bajau and Tausug elders, making sure these skills are preserved for future generations. The revival shows that the Philippines was not a collection of isolated villages, it was, in fact, a maritime civilization. The story of Filipino navigation is, honestly, the story of mastery born from observation and respect. Filipinos navigated not through force, but through understanding of the sea, the wind, the stars, and, well, themselves. The Balangay boats, the star compasses, the wave knowledge, and the mental maps reveal a truth that history often forgot, that the Filipino world was never small. It was wide, connected, and full of intelligence shaped by the ocean. In every wave, our ancestors heard direction. In every star, they saw home. And in every voyage, they carried the spirit of a people who knew how to cross worlds long before modern maps.